Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore. In this video, you're going to learn about ancient beings, Spelljammer space history, and a mysterious bunch of giant blue-skinned space merchants called the Arcane, or the Mercane, who are your game's secret ticket to outer space. So let's start this with a question. Where did the first Spelljammer helms come from? The helms, of course, are the means of propulsion and navigation for spelljamming vessels, where a magic user sits in the helm, links to the ship, and draws the magical power from themselves, or the weave, to travel through the prime material universe. The answer is probably the ancient and powerful race known as the Juna, also called, more widely, the Keepers. I have a description of what they looked like, but I couldn't find anything online, so I don't know if anyone has actually drawn one of them before, but here goes, something to look at while I talk about them. Aside from what they looked like and the lasting legacy they left behind for the civilizations that rose to power after them, little is known about the true history of the Juna. But the most eminent scholar studying their existence, the Illithid historian Estrus, first found their name mentioned in the ancient myths and poetry of the Thrycreen, from an era when the insectoid race were primarily spacefarers. Among countless ancient carvings found across the spheres, there is mention of them, and in very rare findings there are great murals left behind by the Juna themselves. The Juna were theorized to have existed millions of years before the recorded history of realm space, and it was thought that they began to die out or vanished about the same time that both humans and mind flayers first appeared. You can recognize the carvings and murals of the Juna by a repeating three-petaled flower shape. In 1360 DR, a young farmer from the planet Kryn named Teldin Moore happened upon a magic cloak said to belong to the creators. This cloak had a multitude of magical powers and was covered in an intricate geometrical pattern of those three-petaled flowers, indicative of the Juna. At about the same time period in 1361 DR, a collector of antiquities living in the city of Ruothaven on the island nation of Nimbrel on Torrell died, and his collection was sold at auction. This auction and the collection contained several artifacts from the Juna. One of the items was a long curved knife, which was sold to the Arcane Pickett for 10,000 gold pieces. The Arcane will always buy any relic of the Juna if they hear about it. Any threat to a relic that could result in its destruction will prompt them to gather in large numbers and leverage their great wealth and influence to secure and protect such treasures, no matter the cost, in material or lives. So, who are these arcane creatures? Well, today we're going to learn as much as we can about this widely known but fairly mysterious race of cosmic traders. So sit back, grab yourself a beverage, we're about to get deeply nerdy. I mentioned the Juna because it's believed that the Arcane learned the art of creating Spelljammer helms from that ancient race and have been responsible for its widespread use throughout a vast area of the phlogiston expanse, including all of the spheres currently known or thought to contain human life. The Arcane make what must be an enormous fortune selling items and navigational tools, ship designs and life support solutions across the prime material plane. The full extent of their civilization is unknown, but it certainly extends further out into the phlogiston than any human has yet explored. How the Arcane travel from sphere to sphere and world to world is not by using their own Spelljammer technology. However, they must use some sort of portals or magic to move from one location to another. But whatever means they use, they keep to themselves, and they've never shared it with anyone else. I do have my own theory on this, and you may want to include it in your campaign, and I'll mention this at the end of this video. The Arcane are, at first glance, a physically imposing looking race of 12 foot tall or 3.6 meter tall blue-skinned humanoids with thin, lank bodies, an extra joint on each finger, and sometimes an additional finger on each hand. They have a pair of dark eyes set deep below a projecting brow, a double-domed skull, and somewhat fleshy lips on a narrow lantern jaw. They may or may not have pointed ears and typically do not grow any hair anywhere on their body. Despite their size, they're not physically powerful and avoid combat as they know they are no match for the races of the worlds in that regard. What they do have is a spell-like ability to turn invisible, and Dimension Door to a safe escape point up to 3 times per day. And they also have a unique form of racial telepathy, so that if one of them is harmed or killed by someone else, no matter what it's because of, no other arcane will do business with that aggressor until compensation has been paid and the transgression has been made right. Individually, they are invariably of a lawful neutral alignment. Any arcane who is attacked without just cause will still seek some form of revenge in a time, place and method of their own choosing, at little risk of harm to themselves. While not naturally aggressive or physically violent, the arcane do have access to both a lot of powerful magical items and a great deal of wealth with which to pay others to do their fighting for them. Graceful in their movements, typically clad in very fine robes of exotic fabrics, some arcane choose to wear ornate body armor, mainly for style. Walking the streets of bustling human cities, they will hire a group of adventurers to act as bodyguards, and the arcane often carry a very finely crafted enchanted weapon or two, and a number of magical items such as a wand, a ring, amulet, superior healing potion, and a wondrous item or two, which, while useful for self-defense, are used by the arcane stuck in a situation without an immediate means to escape, as bargaining items in order to secure its safe release from harm. Arcane feel no compulsion to stick around and help the members of its entourage in a fight. After all, that's exactly what it's paid them for. They will even continue to negotiate and deal in the middle of combat, and their most common last words are often something ominous like, "You will regret this, you fool." I've written up the arcane monster listing and a brief description and posted it in the homebrew section of D&D Beyond. Link to that is in the description text under this video. I've listed them as a challenge rating 5, which is much higher than their threat seems at face value if you just look at their stats, but they very rarely go into hazardous situations without formidable backup. When dealing with a brand new race or culture they have never encountered before, the arcane are so cautious they hire proxies to do all the negotiating for them. They're almost always encountered alone, even on a world such as Toril, as in alone, as in not with other members of their race. There is said to be only a few arcane, one in Kalimport and Waterdeep for sure, some in Karatur and a couple living in the Beacon Rocks community in the middle of the Great Sea. But despite this rarity, doing business with them is nowhere near as difficult as you would think, thanks to a mysterious and extraordinary ability of theirs to sniff out a business transaction. As skilled merchants invariably connected with the business of spelljammers and helms, the arcane can only be found in crystal spheres that contain races at least aware of the possibility of space travel. They are completely absent from superstitious or isolationist worlds, but are remarkably easy to find in places where spelljamming technology is at least heard of. Since they most commonly travel alone, some more primitive cultures visited by the arcane view them as deities themselves, sometimes even spawning cults that pray to them and ask them for power. The arcane strongly dislike this sort of thing though, and seldom exploit it, as such creatures rarely have much that they need other than perhaps some precious metals and gems given to them as tribute. The arcane are a very neutral race. They deal with anyone who has wealth and is willing to exchange it for their goods. This means they don't take sides and will certainly sell to both sides. The strange thing is, while they are absolutely skilled and know everything there is to know about the arcane devices they sell, it's not known for sure that they manufacture all of it themselves, or if they are selling goods manufactured by someone else, particularly their magnificent Spelljammer helms. There is little known about the origin of the arcane. Rumours abound about their origins. One tale claims that the homeworld of the arcane is not within a crystal sphere at all, but instead lies hidden somewhere within the phlogiston. A Thrycreen legend tells that their origin has something to do with the legendary Spelljammer vessel, in what they gave up their homeworld in exchange for a ship in a deal with an ancient deity. Failing to properly control the ship, they ended up as eternal wanderers, and their planet ultimately fell into its own sun. The arcane themselves do not comment on these legends. They don't talk about who made the items they sell, they don't discuss their culture or the fine details of their biology. Although it is known they are omnivorous, it is not known if they do actually have 2 or more biological genders, or if the gender that they do present is merely a fashion choice, much like the clothing they wear. To date, nobody has reported ever seeing a child of their race. Speculation is rife, and the continued mystery is quite an accomplishment considering they exchange large sums of money and very valuable services to mages who are not known for respecting other people's privacy. The Arcane are one of the very few races who have permission to wander where they please, as their services are so valued and their policy is to never get involved in conflicts except as opportunities to make money. The Arcane are allowed to pass through the territory of some of the most predatory and xenophobic races, such as the Mind Flayers, Beholders, Medusae, and the evil Neogi Slavers. Oftentimes the Arcane are the only ready source of spelljamming helms. While they don't normally need to deal with Mind Flayers, Beholders, and Neogi, as they have their own means of space propulsion, they will still sell to them, well, any except the Neogi. Not only are the Neogi literally cutthroat swindlers, they really need to trade with the Arcane for spelljamming helms or other goods that they cannot acquire themselves. Nobody likes the Neogi, they are just the worst. There are more than a few humanoid and non-humanoid races out there in the multiverse, many of which you've probably never heard of. The hippo-like Gif to the tragic yet dangerous Quam. If given some coin, an Arcane may actually talk about other species and races, perhaps even introduce a few, who knows. While the Beholders have a breed specifically for space propulsion, they rely on the Arcane to design and manufacture all of the ships that transport the Eye Tyrants from planet Hekatha out into space, and the Arcane are the only non-Beholders with the freedom to actually land on that planet and do business. The Arcane are viewed by other species as a very cool, efficient, and uncaring race. Their responses to attempts at haggling can be very unpredictable, but they invariably react badly to threats and do not take them lightly. Threatening violence against an Arcane is as good as doing violence to an Arcane, and you will find yourself not only shut off from doing any further trade with them, but anyone else who does business with the Arcane and has been informed by them that doing business with you also puts them at risk of facing the same penalty. Well, in some locations, threatening an Arcane will see a character unable to buy so much as a loaf of bread the very next day. Many Arcane do worship gods, particularly Bakob, Mistra, Azuth, Savras, and Valsharun. They speak Common and their own language and may speak Draconic, Celestial, Infernal, and Abyssal. Now, how do they travel around the Prime Material Plane without Spelljammers? I suspect they have a means to enhance their psionic power to Dimension Door to a stupendous degree. So instead of teleporting 500 feet, they can use complicated navigational items and some form of mental enhancement to teleport across the phlogiston expanse into known or charted locations of their choosing. So the potential exists, if this is achieved through a secret form of technology, that the player characters could discover and steal away with this and become extremely wealthy, and painted with a very big and scary target by the Arcane, who would likely pay a very high bounty on the characters' heads. Although information in Forgotten Realms novels is sort of side info that you can take or leave over top of or secondary to the source books, there is a Spelljammer novel series called the Cloak Master Cycle, which is a collection of 6 novels by Nigel Findlay, featuring the farmer from Krynn, who I mentioned before, who goes on this crazy cosmic adventure which reveals many secrets about the D&D multiverse. In the novels we learn about a place called the Dock on Toril. The Dock is a large space spelljamming, basically a spaceport, located in the middle of the largest glacier of the Wupi Tishao Mountains in Toril. Controlled by the Arcane and operated by many spacefaring races, the dock's more than 300 dry docks continuously attract business and visitors willing to trade despite its relatively high taxes, and of course doing business with these guys can be tricky as they can leave the planet on their ships. If you like the lore in these videos, don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe buttons. Check out my Patreon page, perhaps become a member of the channel on YouTube. If you like my wares, you can buy a swanky garment from the Teespring store, where you'll geek with pride. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.